Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Beauty and the Bi. We are back for part 2, talking with Mr. Kevin Yee.
Honestly, it's kind of a long interview, and we divided it into 2 parts because we just like talking to him that much.
We just couldn't shut up, so please stay tuned.
That's accurate.
We don't think of stand-up as music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's the truth still. You know what I mean? Like, it's not easy for me to go into rooms and do comedy music because I think the consensus within the comedy community is that you're doing something like that's not normal or that's
It's
not
not,
step.
yeah.
It's strange because it's such the stand-up on its own, like getting up and talking to a crowd as though it's a one-to-one conversation, is already very strange, and yet the perception seems to exist that you are having a performance that kind of suggests like, yes, this is a big performance. There's showmanship involved, and everybody else who kind of just gets up there in a t-shirt is just like, this is what I want to talk about, my dick, like.
Right.
You know,
There's nothing wrong with that. They can tell their dick stories
yes,
too.
like that's fine, but there seems to be some kind of like quiet consensus that we don't do effort anymore, and so you definitely, I'm sure, get some kind of separation. Just
and to my
being a music
face,
comedy.
like people will say it to my
Really?
face, and I think that's why like my story is important, and it's hard. It's hard for me to really explain it to people though, like in a 7-minute set, but.
Sure.
Hearing my story for just as long as we've been talking, you can tell that's how I tell my stories. And every stand-up goes up and tells their story the way they tell their story, whether they're talking or not. Like Louis C.K. and Mark Maron are 2 very different comics,
Absolutely.
but they're both telling stories. And so for me, I grew up telling stories through music, and that includes the pop music, but also the musical theater aspect. And so I think that's where the confusion. So I understand though, because there's definitely been times when I've seen somebody go up with a ukulele and I'm like, no, you're not a singer, you know. And I think parody to be done well, or comedy to be done well, you have to do it well.
Yeah,
and a lot of
there has
things,
to be an element of real talent.
yeah, and so I think that comedy music has gotten a bad rap because a lot of people just go up because of that. Like, we're gonna break the mold, we're gonna add this element, when it's like, this is actually what I do and how I've always told my story. So, but that's the route. But yeah, so at like 30, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go for it because it's now or never. It's now or, 10 years from now, and like 10 years from now seems, it's never too late. But it seems a little bit late. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Me and everything, because
So, like,
everyone always says like, you're so young, you can. My boss used to always tell me, she was like, Cody, you can be in a 5-year coma and wake up and you're still fine. And I'm like,
You
doesn't
say
seem
that.
like it.
Yeah.
Doesn't help my anxiety or what keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
No, I understand that anxiety. Because with comedy, it's especially with what I'm doing, it is very slow moving. I don't know if you feel that way too, because
Sure,
it's
yeah.
like, and there's so many paths, and especially in LA, you don't make money doing comedy. Well, I did make a little bit of money from
that
your
was the
show.
first time any of us have made money from that show.
Yeah.
So I've been doing my show for 2 years now, and this was the very first time that we had really seen any kind of profit return, and it was the first time that there was enough that we could just share the pot with performers, and it wouldn't be embarrassing. It wouldn't be an insult to you.
It's like, here's 50 cents.
Yeah, exactly.
You came out of the venue.
Great, I'll
looking
put that
like,
towards my Uber tip.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you came out of that show looking like a real Caucasian. You had your dollar bills. You were like,
Ooh.
we
handed
need money.
They
And I'm
handed me,
like,
it was the
girl.
craziest thing. The theater
Slowly.
director handed me $47, and I was like, "Is this for us to split?" And he's like, "No, this is your half." And I was like,
Oh, wow.
This is my half." I was like, I could buy like at least 2 drinks with this. And so I was just freaking out when we went next door. But like, really and truly, there is so much anxiety before you ever get to even a sliver of a moment like that. So I'm sure you can speak to that, I'm sure. So what have been some of your anxieties surrounding comedy and entertainment, other than just like working at it for a really long time? Of course, you've worked hard, you've put in the work, you've got a background now. You've got a background and a talent that you've developed, but I think we had spoken a little bit earlier just before the show about having different communities that you don't want to disappoint, because specifically working as a minority comedian, whereas as a woman we're not a minority but we're considered a minority interest. So and there's, because of that, I have tons of anxiety always. I'm worried that I'll say something that will hurt someone. I assume you feel the same way.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very complex kind of conversation to have, because of course as a minority, both Asian and gay, I feel like I know that there are a lot of complex things that, so for instance, like whenever a comic goes on the stage and does an Asian joke, and it's okay. Like for Asians, like it's still okay for some reason to be a little bit racist towards Asians. There's so many comics that have like the bad Asian driver or the small Asian penis joke. And the thing is, but then they're like, you can't be, like we're all trying to, like, you can't be offended because you're doing jokes too. But a lot of my songs and jokes are kind of like more on myself than actually on other people. Yeah. And I think for instance, the Asian thing, my analysis of that is there's so rarely when I'm in comedy festivals or in comedy rooms, it's so rare that I see other Asian comics or audience members. So I feel like people think it's okay to have these jokes. And
because nobody's gonna call them out on it.
Right.
Just be like, that's not me.
Right. And it's so complicated, because then I'm sitting there going, it is it's kind of racist, and you're perpetuating.
Yeah,
but I also can't be offended because
and
like
you don't have anyone else there to talk to and say like,
exactly.
hey, I kind of feel shitty. This kind of sucks, and I can't say why.
Right.
And I mean, it's one of the most important things that we can be doing with comedy is, I think one of the best litmus test for whether or not you're really doing good work with your comedy is asking yourself, who is the victim of the joke?
Right.
You were saying just now, you're saying a lot of your jokes whenever you're making jokes about Asian culture, it's because you come from an Asian background. You are an Asian person, and you're saying that the quote unquote the butt of the jokes is you. Right. You're not hurting other people when you're not trying to make anyone else the victim of the joke. Whereas, if somebody in a position of power or real privilege is using someone in a position of less power as a joke, that's not really funny to me. I think if anything, it's just a kind of crutch.
We make jokes about ourselves. It doesn't change any kind of status quo. It doesn't reinforce any kind of idea that like white people are this like lesser, like just less than, versus like when white people make fun of like people of color and queer people and disabled people. You know what I mean? It keeps them down versus. Like
it's intellectually lazy.
It really is.
Be smarter.
Well, that's what I think about Asian jokes, and I'm like, it's just an easy laugh. Like if you thought of something like an interesting way to. Different way to phrase it, then maybe it would be smarter.
But it's the same stereotypes, it's the same perpetuating.
And America's okay with those stereotypes. America's okay with laughing at that. But then the other side of it, which I was talking a little bit before we started this podcast, is that like, the Asian, I don't know so much about the gay community, because I think that we can make fun of ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
The Asian community, we're still trying to figure out, and we're still being very careful about like how we portray ourselves, because we've not been portrayed before. And so there's a lot of like, oh, that's self-hating. Like I've gotten like that's self-hating so many times. But one of my theories, and this kind of goes into the Black community too, and somebody that I really think has done a lot of good work is Tyler Perry. But I'm not going to say that I enjoy his movies, but what he's done is he's parodied his own community, and they've been able to laugh together. And that's what the Asian community hasn't, in my opinion, don't get mad, no hashtags against me. We haven't been able to do that because it's so complex, and there's like two different. So one of my ideas is that if we take back our culture and our stereotypes and try to put a positive spin on it, but then people go, well, why are you portraying yourself as that Asian? And then, and I think that gets really complex too, but I think people are trying to be really careful, and it goes back to like I don't know if you watched Margaret Cho's first, not her first stand-up special, but like the one that I want, where she talks about All American Girl, and one of the biggest backlash, or one of the biggest backlashes, was from the Asian community, saying like, you're not Asian enough, you're too Asian, and yada yada yada, and then they shut that down, and we didn't have another Asian family on TV until Fresh Off the Boat, which is like recent, so that's over a decade, I think,
and
maybe
that was
even 20 years.
the same time that Baby Cobra came out too. Baby Cobra, like that was just almost, you know, prior to that, and that almost provides like a compare and contrast for, you know, for Margaret Cho, because it's so different. She really does kind of lean into and discuss a lot of, you know, what makes her specifically an Asian woman, and specifically her role as, you know, somebody who's married to a man, and specifically to a white man, and how that makes her feel.
Right.
But it's like there's no reason at this point that we shouldn't have every perspective on that. And yet it feels like we have to choose. It feels like we have to, you know, take time to be like, okay, well, we've checked that box. We have like an Asian woman who feels or sounds Asian enough, and an Asian woman who feels or sounds not so Asian. And like those things shouldn't come under critique. People should just be able to be what they want to be in comedy.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not coming just from other cultures. It's coming from the Asian culture too. Because like Fresh Off the Boat, for instance, like I had talked to my mom about it. I was like, because I watch it, I know that's not my story. I'm not from Orlando. I was born in Canada.
It's
you know,
a
like
story.
it's a story. But I'll be honest, I cry every episode when I watch, because growing up, I never saw that. I was never included in any way on film and TV. And so I see that, and I see like that glimpse of my mom or that glimpse of my brother, and it's just really powerful. And so I was saying to my mom how much I liked it, and she said, I don't like it. It's not my story. Why can't they just make a nice Asian family? And I'm like,
it's like true, but like also like this is also telling other people's story. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's very true. It's like it's why we shouldn't just have like one kind of like, why can't we have more than one show about like another Asian family? Why does it just have to be Fresh Off the Boat until that show's off the air?
Well, and one of the biggest oppositions when it started was the guy whose story it is.
Oh yeah.
He was really mad about like
he's not part of like the project anymore.
Just sad. But then it's like, why would you put it on ABC? Because ABC, of course, is going to water down any story.
Sure.
And I think they have to toe that line. But like I said, it's just those glimpses of like, of me and my family, where I just go, that's really powerful. And we need more of that. But there is this huge conflict. And so I try to be more careful with my work. I was saying before that I kind of got called out on one of my songs, which I no longer perform, called Sassy Black Friend. And it's about, of course, Sassy Black Friend is a trigger, and I understand that. And I think I understood that writing the song too. But it is actually about my friend, so it is about something. And
it's not just about an idea of a person.
Right. And it's kind of like, it follows our story, and then to her getting married, you know, and there was a little bit of a backlash because I performed it at a college conference. I'm in the college market, and the Atlantic wrote an article about it. I actually didn't know what the article was going to be about, because the college market is everything. It's about like magicians and jugglers and comedians, and I performed it there, and it ended up being about political correctness in comedy in colleges, and she used me as an example of something that offended students, and more specifically in her article, like white students were offended by it, or were scared to offend black students.
We do have, for the sake of format, one important question we ask all of our guests. And ultimately, we just want to kind of dig into where your ideas about sex came from. Specifically, we ask, what is your first memory of or experience with sex? That doesn't necessarily mean we're asking you about your first sexual experience. but where did your ideas about sex come from? Whether it was the first time you heard a sex joke in a movie, or even it could absolutely be your first sexual experience with someone else.
First time seeing porn, your first time just
you walking on your parents or something.
Your friends talking about it in front of you. Like I remember I had like a friend talk about like masturbation in front of me for the first time. I was with Dave.
The two straight boys.
It was Dave. He went back in time to talk about masturbation in front of you.
And same thing. We were like super young, and I was just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
What is this world?
Yeah.
There's like this whole...
I remember thinking it was so crass. I was in which this story is already crass because it starts with me and my friends in middle school being in a hot tub for just a hot tub party. And everyone was like, it was like
Aroused.
the parents were all inside. Everyone was like, horny levels were probably through the roof.
Yes.
It was like at least 14 on a scale of 10 for everyone. And some of the girls had started talking about, it was the girls who initiated the conversation about the fact that they masturbated. And then me and the guy I liked were both like, we would never masturbate. No one would ever masturbate. And then like we, of course, eventually when we got together talked about like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We started years ago.
Yeah, it's just this, all of a sudden this like wall comes down and you're
I was like,
oh.
I would never discuss such things.
Yeah.
So tell us about the time you were in a hot tub talking about
Oh,
masturbation.
I wish I had
Hot tub. Yeah. What was your
I wish
hot tub?
I had like fun stories like that because did you have a lot of gay like not experiences but like role models because I didn't really have any gay role models.
I
so-
was like the first queer person to come out like in all of my extended family and everything.
Yeah.
Like I had no queer relatives.
Yeah.
Well, I mean I do, but my younger brother, but he came out after me, so it was just
Right.
kind of like it's just us two.
Yeah.
My dad's one of 7.
Yeah.
So it's like we had all his family and no role models, no one to look up to. At least that we knew personally.
Yeah, and also like even on film and TV, I just didn't see that, and then
Will and Grace, I think.
Yeah,
Like my only
Grace.
experience,
Will and Grace was one of the first
guys are
things for
younger
me.
than
And
me.
Rent, yeah, that was like, I remember like literally when I was,
Oh,
you
Rent.
know,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me,
yeah.
I was gonna say for me it didn't start until middle school until I had started doing theater, but that was definitely where it started.
Right.
It's strange, the things that I identify with now as like where I would look to are things that I should have discovered when I was in middle school. Like
Right.
icons would be totally different, but they would definitely have come from pop culture for sure.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where I got just like all my idolatry and like my ideas about identity. But what about you?
Well, I mean, I always knew that I was gay, like since like as far as I can remember. But I don't think I knew what that meant, or even
absolutely.
sexually what that meant. You know,
Right.
I just wanted to be with a guy. I wanted to be in love with a guy, and it was more about like who I wanted to go home to, or who I saw spending my life with.
Did your parents know?
That I was gay. I think that my mom did probably as a kid. Yeah.
Were they okay with it, or was it a pretty difficult environment?
No, my mom. I mean, my dad. My dad is not as open, and he's not in my life anymore.
Gotcha.
For like a long time, he hasn't been in my life. But not so much that because I came out of the closet, but because I just wasn't the son he wanted. Like my brother was the
Gotcha.
son he wanted. He wanted the soccer player. He wanted like all that. And I was like in ballet at the age of 5. You know what I mean? Like I was just
Why
that
not both?
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was that one that he was like, oh, I don't really get it. My mom, though, was more open-minded, I think, and she never really, but I never felt like she would disown me when I came out of the closet. But I guess, like, I definitely felt sexually attracted to men and, like, boy bands. Speaking of which, like, Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, when that kind of stuff happened, I was like, yeah. But then I didn't really know what that was. And then when I came out of the closet, I was 18. In Canada, you can drink and go to the bars at 18. So I kind of fell into this group of friends that like we would just hang out, and they would take me to the bars, and we would kind of talk about stuff, and gave me porn on my birthday at some point. But this was 18. I feel like that's late, right?
Well, if you're saying you knew you were gay right away, was there like a moment where you saw something on TV, or you had someone in your life where you're like, that's what I want?
Oh, that's what I want.
Or even that's what I want to be, or that's what I am, whichever.
Well, it's actually...
I have romantic obsession, so I
Yeah,
identify
yeah.
by like things that I want rather than what I am.
Yeah.
But like, yeah.
No, I think it was always this feeling of like, I'm just not attracted to women, and like I don't know, I'm just not attracted to any females. And then I was watching Sally Jesse Raphael, And it was actually a gay couple, but it was more complex than they were just gay. It was like one of them wanted to transition, and like the other was going to break up with them, and you know, the audience was booing, and they were being treated like, you know, circus freaks. And I was like, geez, like that's a horrible life. Like I would hate to be gay or in that, you know, in that community. And then that's when it clicked. When I was like, no, that's me, and just like flop, sweat, and terror, and like this is the rest of my life. But I was young. I was like 11 or 12, and then I'm like, well, can I wait till I'm 18? Like, and there was no, you know, nobody knocking at my door at 12, thank God. That's getting weird. So it wasn't like I was gonna go out and have sex at that time anyways, you know what I mean? So I was able to kind of like hold it in and like hide it until I was 18, but obviously the pressure eventually happened, and so but yeah, then when I came out of the closet and I started going to bars, I was like obsessed with losing my virginity, you know what I mean? Just, and it wasn't even like I didn't want it to be romantic. I just wanted to get it done.
It's like getting your molars out. You're like, let's just do this. Okay, take it away. I need to move on. Okay.
Yeah. Speaking
with
of
that, we'll move on
segue
to today's game.
Because you have this amazing song called "I Fucked Your Dad," and then we talked about how you're like, the biggest joke I get is you're a top in that video, because that honestly was the first thing I noticed, because obviously the dynamics in like gay porn, like the dad, you know, the older one versus we get it.
Yeah.
So having said that, we're gonna play a game called Top Bottom Kill.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna throw someone out to you, and you're gonna either say that you would top them, bottom for them, or you kill them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Fun.
So first things first, Bill O'Reilly.
Oh, kill.
Chris Evans.
Oh, I would bottom.
Right on. I can respect that.
Yeah.
Anderson Cooper.
Oh, I would top. I think I would have to top.
All right.
Right?
I don't know.
I feel like you. Yeah.
Decision is made.
Harrison Ford in 1976.
Oh, can I do the middle? Like, can I just snuggle?
Ooh.
No, I have to choose one. I would
choice.
Pick a side.
I would have to bottom because I mean, I wouldn't. It would be hard. He would probably hurt me a lot.
Not
he hurt
Captain
a lot
America.
of people, Kevin.
Yeah, he would be rough. So.
What about Harrison Ford now?
Well, he would just have to lie there, right? Like, so he would have to bottom at this point. He's tired.
Yeah.
He's got a plane crash.
Yeah, he's like, just do whatever. Just let me drink.
Yeah.
Nicki Minaj.
I would have to top.
Interesting. I would have to bottom to Nicki.
Really?
Like, wow.
I'd be scared to not do what she says.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Like, let that woman dom.
All of One Direction at once.
Oh, well, they're all bottoms, right?
There we go.
Correct answer.
Correct answer. But also kill. Anyway.
So the youth asylum may rise again.
Yes. Make that
One Direction.
$0 from them.
And then lastly, Harry Styles' solo career.
Oh, it's bad, isn't it? Kill. Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thank you.
I think that was a good one. I think we did a good one.
I'm glad that we went from like the points.
Yes. I know. She fell asleep, I think.
She's just waking up.
You asleep?
She's like, stop talking.
Okay.
Well, join us next week, I suppose.
Join us next week. We'll be back. Possibly with a dog, possibly without. Stay tuned.
I hope so.